What's going on, guys? It's Chris Battaglia, and today I wanted to make a definitive guide for beginners getting into espresso. Now, the reason why I'm making this video is because I have a bunch of videos about espresso, but I don't have kind of all the information in one place, and I wanted to make something so that if you're at home and you just bought a new espresso machine, or you're just getting into making espresso at home, you can go to one video, watch it, have a very generalized understanding of how to get good results from your home machine. So, first thing I want to talk about is OMNI roast versus espresso roast. So when you're buying beans, guys, first thing you're gonna want to think about is what beans do I want? What beans are gonna work well in my machine? Now, there's kind of two schools of thoughts that roasters have with this. There are roasters that have espresso roasts and filter roasts or drip roasts. And then there are roasters that have an OMNI roast where it's like, you could technically use anything for espresso. We fall into the latter, but I know a lot of people, like the differentiated roasts. Pretty much the argument being that espresso roasts are always more developed, meaning they're a bit more roasted, darker roasted. Now, what I would suggest is if you're buying coffee for the first time, go to your favorite spot and simply ask them what they use on bar. What's their house espresso kind of blend? Now, most places will have that coffee for you and be able to sell it to you. I'm gonna assume it's either a blend or it's usually like a natural processed Brazilian coffee or something like that. And that's gonna be fantastic because they use that all the time. It's something that you've tasted, something that you know. And so now you can take that bag home and go and try to replicate the results. What I will say, the only thing I will say, avoid if you're just getting into espresso, especially if you have an average home machine, even an above average home machine, it's going to be very hard to get good results or excellent results from a very lightly roasted coffee. So I would simply avoid buying those coffees for your home espresso setup. If you like them for your filter setup, that's awesome, but it's not necessarily going to be super easy to get those to work for your home espresso setup. Now, the second thing we need to consider here, guys, is our grinder. So a great espresso grinder to start with, it's very affordable. It's like something like a Baratza Set 30. You want to make sure you have a burr grinder, preferably on timer, and a grinder that can grind fine enough for espresso. Your grinder is going to be very important because it's going to be how you control pretty much everything to do with your shot other than the actual extraction, but everything else comes down to having a good grinder. I would argue that having a good grinder is just as important, if not more important, than having a good espresso machine. So when you're grinding your coffee, there is some sort of argument about spraying the beans with a bit of water before you dose the coffee. You can do that if you're weighing your beans before every shot, and this just helps with grinder retention, making sure you're getting kind of all of the coffee out of the grinder. There's nothing sitting in the chamber, but that's kind of a topic for another video. The key is make sure you have a good grinder that you know how to adjust and that can grind fine enough for espresso. Now, when it comes to the actual mechanics of pulling a good espresso shot, the first thing we want to talk about is kind of grams in, grams out, and time. Those are our three variables we're going to be looking at. So grams in, how many dry grams go into the portafilter basket? Now let's say you have a home machine, your basket might be 14 grams. So you're going to put 14 grams in, you're looking at 28 grams of liquid into the cup. This is the traditional 1-to-2 ratio. You can adjust this ratio for taste, but I would recommend starting here. Now, time. You want that shot to take around 30 to 35 seconds. Now, I know probably a lot of you have seen that turbo shots are becoming very popular in the specialty coffee community, where these shots are happening very, very quickly. I will make a separate video about that. For now, let's focus on 1-to-2 ratio, 30 to 35 second brew time. And like I said, you can adjust that ratio for taste, and you can definitely go in or out of the 30 to 35 range as you please. I would say not more than 2 seconds on either side. And once again, taste. So we've ground our coffee, we have our ratio set up. Now what? Now there are a bunch of distribution tools on the market, stuff like this, like Fumolier, stuff like the OCD, like these types of things. These are all great tools, and they're awesome for making sure that your coffee bed is flat and even, and it helps reduce channeling, which we'll talk about in a minute. You do not need any of these though. These are all like a couple $100 a piece. If you're just getting into it, guys, you don't need one just yet. But I will talk about them briefly for a second. These tools are all meant to reduce channeling. Channeling is pretty much when your coffee puck is inside of the portafilter and it's brewing. Sometimes the pressure will break holes in the puck or create places where water is flowing more quickly, and this will result in uneven extractions because obviously the coffee that's getting doused with water is getting extracted very quickly, and some of the other places are more dry, so you're not getting an even extraction, which is obviously not good. So those tools help just make sure that the coffee bed is nice and ready for a tamp. Now when you're tamping the coffee, it's very simple, guys. Thumb down, elbow up, and you want to generate about 30 pounds of pressure. So we have a calibrated tamp here that kind of clicks when it hits 30 pounds. You can do something like that, or if you want, I've heard of people taking like their home scale, putting their tamp on it, pushing down, feeling what the 30 pounds feels like, going from there. So that's another thing that you can definitely play with, and just make sure you're getting your tamp right, and look for a nice even flat coffee bed, because obviously if you're tamping on an angle, the water's all going to run that way, and then the high side's going to get no extraction at all, and the low side's going to get all the extraction. So something else to consider. Now once that coffee goes into the portafilter, you might have something on your machine called pre-infusion. So what is pre-infusion? Pre-infusion started in the big machines. Very simply, it is line, for the big machine, for something direct water, it's line pressure, it saturates the puck. So before the pump kicks on and hits that coffee puck with like 9 bars or 8 bars of pressure, the pre-infusion puts water on it and saturates the whole puck. So then this way, the puck is ready for a more even extraction, and it reduces channeling, or the possibility of channeling. So if your machine has pre-infusion, it's probably not direct water. The pump is simply kicking on at low bars, 3 or 4 bars. It's saturating the puck, and then your pump is kicking on full tilt and extracting the espresso. You do not need pre-infusion. You do not need it. Machines have just recently gotten pre-infusion. Plenty of delicious espresso was drunk before pre-infusion. Plenty of delicious espresso will be drunk after pre-infusion. But if your machine has it, it's another variable you can kind of play with, because you can control how long pre-infusion is happening for, how long the rest is before the pump kicks on, and all of those things. Now, if you are using pre-infusion, definitely calculate that into your total brew time, just so you're aware that you might be getting longer brew times. Simply if you have a big rest period, obviously the pump's not on, the coffee's just kind of sitting there. So something to consider. Then you're actually extracting your shot. You're looking for obviously those grams out that we talked about earlier. And once the shot's extracted, I would recommend stirring or swirling your shot, simply because total dissolved solids in coffee is changing throughout the extraction. So this just kind of mixes everything up, makes it a nice homogeneous espresso, and you should have delicious espresso to enjoy at home, guys. So that is my general video on an introduction to espresso at home. Like I said, I made this video because I have a bunch of videos kind of scattered all over the YouTube channel that have to do with espresso, but this was one where I just wanted to give you guys a basic lay of the land, so that if you just got a machine, you can go home and watch this video and kind of have a good idea of at least where to look, what to research next, what to think about next. So I appreciate you guys watching this. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe if we provided any value at all, and I'll see you next time.